In this screencast, we're going to try to summarize some of the things that we've done in class and ideas that we're learning about in biology. We started last week by looking at cells, and you could see that all cells have a membrane and they have cytoplasm on the inside that mostly looks clear. Some of the cells we could see a nucleus, and most cells have a nucleus. We could see that plant cells have a cell wall and that some of those cell walls are thicker than others. And that now we want to really spend more of our time thinking about how those parts actually do their job. And so this week we've been spending some time looking specifically at the cell membrane. And it does control what molecules come and go from the cell. It's a really important process for cell functions. And it's made of fat and protein. And the really key characteristic that we want to start with is this idea that it selects which substances can come in and out of cells through the cell membrane. So one of the things that we started with was this idea that molecules are moving around all of the time and they tend to spread out. And so we call this diffusion, where molecules spread out from high concentration to low concentration. We modeled this with a baggie lab where we put some starch in a baggie and we put that baggie in some water that had some iodine. And the reason that we used those things is because when starch and iodine come in contact, there's a chemical change and it turns purple or darker color. And so what you can see in the video here is that the iodine is moving into the bag E, and there is a color change inside of the bag. However, the starch in the bag would like to move out of the bag and diffuse across the membrane. However, the starch molecules are too large, and so you can see that there's a color change on the inside, but not on the outside. So, if we were to model this, we could say that the starch molecules inside the bag were large, little star-shaped molecules, and on the outside there were those smaller iodine molecules. And so what we saw was, after some time, the iodine molecules diffused across the membrane and interacted with the starch and turned purple. So this was a good example of diffusion, and it also showed that the membrane allows some molecules to go through where others not. And the key difference is this size. And so oxygen, carbon dioxide, some smaller molecules like amino acids can move right through the membrane, and water certainly can. Other larger molecules like starch, proteins, they are not able to pass through. And so we're going to spend some time looking specifically at water. Water moving across the membrane from high concentrations to low concentrations is called osmosis. It gets its own special word because cells have a lot of water and a lot of times are very essential for surviving. So water moving across the membrane is given a special word called osmosis. And so we saw this by putting cells in water, and we saw that water moved from high concentration outside the cell into the cells, forcing the cell membrane to push against the cell wall and making it look like a solid brick wall. Whereas when you put the cells in a lower concentration of water, where there was salt and water, there was actually a higher concentration of water inside the cells, and so the water moved from inside to outside, from high to low, and you could see the difference in the spaces between the cell wall and the cell membrane. And so if you can see this on a larger scale with the plants there, and that if you have a plant that has lots of water available, the cells fill with water and it is able to stand up and provide support and structure. Whereas if you don't have enough water, the cells deflate and there isn't that pressure inside of the cells and the plant droops. And so what's key about osmosis is this fact that it is small and it can pass through the cell membrane quickly and easily, that that water will move, and so the cells will either gain or lose water if there's a different concentration inside and outside of the cell. and that it is the water that it's moving, and that it always moves down the gradient from high concentration to low concentration. So that's a recap of some of the things that we've done in class. I would like you to take a look at some of the examples that we have here with spraying vegetables at the supermarket, or, as you can see, where there's some dead grass from salt being applied in large amounts to the grass and soil, and then therefore killing the plants that are there, so killing the grass. So yeah, that's why you have the dead spot. So use those examples to sort of apply your understanding of osmosis. Thank you.